Alright, so we're going to work on a pre-trip of the bus here. We're going to start out by checking our mirrors up here. This is our driver's side mirror, making sure the glass is clean and clear, not chip, crack, cut, or broken. Make sure our housing's secure, everything's secure to the bus, and our wires are here. They're not frayed, they're not chip, cut, cracked, or dry rotted. I'm also going to listen right now. I'm going to listen for any kind of air leaks coming from underneath the bus from my air tanks, making sure that if I was able to see them, that they would be not chip, cracked, cut, or broken. All the air lines and fittings will be secure. There's no audible air leaks coming out of it. While I'm standing here, since I'm looking at my driver's steering wheel, I want to talk about my drive linkages. So I'm looking at if I could see my drive links. I check all my linkages, my rods, make sure they're not chip, crack, or broken, make sure that all hardware is in place and that they're secure to the bus. My steering shaft goes down into my gearbox. My gearbox is secure to the bus, not chip, crack, or broken. There's no audible air leaks or no visual leaks. I'd also be looking at all my rods and linkages coming from the steering gearbox out to my wheels, making sure that they're not chip, cracked, or broken. Everything's secure to the bus. All hardware would be in place. Won't come around to the front of the bus. As I come to the front of the bus, I take a step back at first. I'm going to check underneath of my bus. I want to make sure that there's no leaks. We do have coolant lines coming up to the front, so I'm checking to make sure there's no leaks coming out from underneath the bus. Then I'm going to start with the very top of my bus. I'm checking all of my amber clearance lights. They are amber in color. They're not chip, crack, or broken. They're secure to the bus. All hardware is in place. My signboard is glass there, and the rubber seal is intact. It's present and secure to the bus. My windshields, both sides, left and right, I'm checking to make sure that they're not chip, crack, or broken. They're secure to the bus. All my rubber gaskets and everything around the windshields on both sides is actually secure. It's not cut, cracked, or dry rotted. Checking my wipers, checking to make sure all my hardware is in place and it's secure on both of them. Also checking my rubber on my wiper, making sure it's that it is rubber to glass and not metal to glass. Work my way down. I'm going to check my bike rack real quick. Just make sure that it's secure, that all hardware's in place, nothing's broken off of it. While I'm here, I'm going to check my washer fluid. To open it, you just open up the door and pull out on the stick, and you should actually have blue fill up to this bead here or somewhere in there. This one's obviously a little bit low. I'm going to check my bumper, give it a little push, make sure it's secure to the bus, not loose, not cracked or falling off or anything like that. I do have a valid license plate and a valid inspection sticker on here. Also, I'm going to look at my headlights. Checking my headlights, making sure they're not chip, crack, or broken. They're secure to the bus. They're all hardware's in place on it. My headlights have no moisture in it. That would indicate that there's water in it, that there's a leak that they could blow out. And my turn signals on each side are amber in color. They're not chip, crack, or broken. All hardware's in place and secure to the bus. Move on over to my curbside mirror. Checking my curbside mirror, making sure that the glass is present, it's clean. It's not chip, crack, or broken on both my convex and my straight mirror. Checking my housing, making sure all my wiring is coming off of here. It's not cut, cracked, or dry rotted or frayed. And checking the housing, making sure it's not chip, crack, or broken and that it's secure to the bus. Passenger entryway, checking to make sure that my tread for the entryway is actually secure. Nothing here that would cause a slip, trip, or fall. My doors, I'm going to check both of them, make sure they open and close properly. Checking the glass, make sure it's not chip, crack, or broken, secure, and also checking the rubber seals, making sure that they're secure, they're not cut, cracked, or dry rotted. So I move back, checking my kneel and my ramp lights here, making sure that they're secure to the bus. They're amber in color, they're not chip, crack, or broken, and the gasket on this one is secured to the bus. It's not cut, cracked, or dry rotted. As well as my courtesy light. This is a white light, clear light that shines down, help people get on the bus and see the step. All right, moving back to the braking components. Obviously, I cannot see my braking components, so I would have to just visualize it and talk about it. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is my brake lines. My brake lines are rubber, so I'm making sure they're not cut, cracked, or dry rotted. Checking to make sure all fittings are good on them and that they're secure. I don't hear any audible air leaks. My brake lines go into my brake chamber. My brake chamber is secure to the bus, not chip, cracked, or broken, and that there's no audible air leaks coming from my chamber. This vehicle right here has all-wheel disc brakes. So our next thing, our chamber pushes out on a push rod. Checking that push rod, making sure that that's secure to the bus and the brake chamber and that the cotter keys and everything's secure. My push rod pushes onto my brake shoe or my brake pads. My brake pads, I'm making sure that they're proper depth, that there's no contaminants on them that would cause them to slip, or that they are secured to the bus. My brake pads squeeze onto a brake rotor, checking that rotor or that disc to make sure that there's no contaminants, no signs of excess heat or wear, and that it's secured to the bus. As I come out from there, I'm looking at my hub seal. My hub seal here is not leaking. All my hardware is in place and secure. And if we could see it, we'd make sure that we have a proper grease in there. Shop checks that for us. All right, from there, I'm gonna check out my lugs on my rim. I'm checking to make sure all my lugs are secure. There's no signs of running rust or shiny threads that would indicate that the lugs are backing off. Checking my rim, making sure that my rim has no cracks or welds that's unapproved in it, and that it's secure to the bus. I'm also checking to make sure that I have a good seat around the wheel to the rubber. It's nice and even. So I come out to my tire, I'm gonna check for 3 things: inflation, condition, and depth. So if I had a tire gauge, I would actually check my my tire pressure. Shop does that for us. I'm checking my condition. I'm checking my sidewall, making sure that I don't have any excess rubbing on the outer sidewalls. There's no bulges or cracks or dry rots. And then depth, I'm checking my front tire. I should have no less than 4/32 of tread on the front on the tread here, and that this tire seems to be good, and that it's properly worn. No cracks or dry rots on that. If I'm looking underneath my bus still, I'm going to check out for my suspension components now. I'll be looking for my airbags, making sure that they're secure to the bus. They're not cut, cracked, or dry rotted, and your airbag mounts are secure. All hardware is in place, and also checking my air lines going into both my airbags, making sure that they're not cut, cracked, or dry rotted, and I don't hear any leaks coming out of those airbags. I'd also check my shock absorber. It's a oil-filled shock absorber, so I'm checking to make sure that that's secure to the bus. It's not leaking. I don't see any visible leaks out of it or anything like that. While I'm here, I'm going to check my splash guard mud flaps, making sure they're secure to the bus. All hardware is in place. I'll move on back. So I move back. As I walk down the side of the bus, I'm going to check all my windows, make sure that nothing's cut, cracked, or chipped or broken, which these all appear to be good. Get to my back door. I'm going to check this the same way I did as the front. I'm going to check to make sure my glass is in place. We'll check operation later, make sure that all my rubber gasketing is there and secured. All my marker lights, my turn signals, they're amber in color back here. They're secure to the bus. All hardware's in place. They're not chipped, cracked, or broken. As well as my step lights, making sure that they're here and secure. They're clear in color. They're not chipped, cracked, or broken. So I go back into my fuel tank here. I want to check my cap, make sure my cap's secure. Looking around my tank for any visible leaks or also odor of diesel fuel that might be leaking. Which all this looks good. If I was under my bus, I'd check my tank straps or my cage and make sure that that's secure. All hardware's in place. Shut the door. If I was able to crawl underneath the bus at this point, I would do that and check for my frame and cross members, making sure my frame and cross member are not bent or twisted, that there's no cracks in it, that there's no illegal unapproved welds in it, and that it's nice and straight for my frame and cross members. I'd also check my torque arm on my back axle right here, making sure it's a kind of a dog bone shaped item. I'd make sure that that is secure to the bus. All hardware is in place. I'm also going to check my U-bolts, which hold my frame and suspension together, making sure they're there and secure. There's no backing off of the nuts, and that everything's secured and in place. Finally, I'm going to check my drive shaft. My drive shaft's located between my motor and my rear axle. And I'm going to make sure that that is secure in place, that the U-joints in there, the universal joints, are properly lubricated, and that the drive shaft is nice and straight. There's no bends in it or twists in it. As I move back to my rear axle, once again, I'm going to check my turn signal right here, make sure that's there and secure. When you get to the back, many of the components are the same as on the front. You can say I would check this component just like I would up front. However, we prefer that you say it all over again. That way, if you forget anything, you can go back up front. So at this point, I'd start with my brakes again. I'm checking my brake hoses, making sure my hoses and fittings are secure. They're not cut, cracked, or dry rotted. They're secure to the bus. I don't hear any leaks. My brake hoses go to my brake chamber. My brake chamber is secure to the bus. There's no chips, cracks, or breaks in it. No audible air leaks coming out of my brake chamber. My brake chamber pushes out on my push rod. I'm checking that, make sure it's straight and not bent, that all hardware is in place. My push rod pushes on my brake pads. Checking my pads for proper depth, no signs of excess heat or contaminants. They're secure to the bus. My brake pads push in on my brake rotor. I'm checking my disc brake or rotor to make sure that it's not warped, not twisted, not bent. Secure to the bus. There's no signs of excess heat or contaminants on it. From there, I'm going to come out here and check my hub oil seal again, or my hub seal. Checking to make sure that all my lugs are here are secure to the bus. There's no leaks coming out. Shop will check the hub when they do a service on it. I'm going to go ahead and check all my lug nuts, making sure all my lug nuts are secure. There's no signs of running rust that would indicate a loose lug, or any kind of shiny threads over here that would indicate that it's backed off. I check my rim, make sure my rim is secured. I got proper distance on all the way around and on the bead of my tire. So my rim looks good. Checking my tire for inflation, condition, and depth. So if I had a tire gauge, I check my inflation. Shop does that for us. Checking my condition, making sure there's no rubs or any excess bulges or cracks or dry rot on my tire. And I'm checking my depth of my tire. This one needs to be 2/32 or more in the back. We also have butted, or what they call inverted rims on this bus, which means there's 2 tires back here. So I would check the inside tire the same way, but I'm also going to check the spacing in between the 2 tires to make sure there's no obstacles or objects in there that would cause heat and possibly cause a tire failure. Check my suspension components the same way. I have a airbag and airbag mount, so I've checked my airbag, make sure it's not cut, cracked, or dry rotted. No audible air leaks. Checking my mounts, make sure all hardware's in place, they're secure to the bus, and my line's going into my airbags. I'm also going to check my shock absorber, making sure that it's secure, the mounts are secure, there's no visual leaks coming from the shock absorber. Finally, I'll check my splash guard mud flaps, making sure they're there and secure. They're not dry rotted or falling off or anything like that. I'm going to move on back here. This vehicle is equipped with diesel exhaust fluid. Here's your diesel exhaust fill. We're going to make sure that it is secure, and we also want to make sure that we have proper exhaust fluid fill. There's a gauge on the front, however you want about at least an eighth of a tank for the test. Also in this compartment, and we'll go ahead and open this up so you can see it. You just take the key and twist to the left, and the compartment should open. There it goes. So also in this compartment, there are a couple things. I'm going to go ahead and put my gloves on here. You can see your diesel exhaust fluid tank here a little bit better. It's got that blue cap on it, so you can see that there's no leaks coming from it. In this compartment, we also have our power steering reservoir. So this is our power steering reservoir right here. Checking to make sure that there's no leaks coming out of the hoses. All hardware is in place and secure. Check that I would have proper fill on it. So there's a little dipstick back here. If you pull it out, we got proper fluid fill. And just twist it back to the right. Checking my hoses, making sure they're not leaking. The hoses go down to my power steering pump, which is on the other side of the frame. My power steering pump is gear driven. I'm making sure it's not chipped, cracked, or broken. It's all hardware secure and there's no visual leaks. While I'm in here, I'm going to check all my electrical components, making sure I don't see any frayed wires or anything like that. All my wires are capped off, all my hoses are here, and there's no leaks. So this compartment looks pretty good to me. So we'll back on that. We'll go ahead and lock it down and secure it. So as I work my way to the back of the bus, first thing I'm going to do is take a big step back. I'm going to check underneath of my bus, checking for any kind of fluid leaks. It's not normal. If you see oil, coolant, hydraulic fluid, anything like that, I don't see any. I'm going to start at the very top, my exhaust stack. Checking my stack to make sure that it's properly secured to the bus, which is protruding out, and it looks like it's working properly. Go down to my clearance lights. They're red in color. Got 5 of them across the top. Make sure they're secure to the bus, not chip, crack, or broken. My tail lights and my brake lights, all right here, they're red in color. And make sure that they're secure to the bus. Make sure that the rubber gaskets and seals are secure and that they're not chip, crack, or broken. Turn signals, amber in color, not chip, cracked, or broken, secure to the bus. My gasket is here on both sides, is nice and secure, and they're all there. My reverse lights, clear in color, same thing. I'm checking to make sure they're not chip, crack, or broken. Checking to make sure that the rubber gasket on it is secure. And finally, both of my reflectors, I'm making sure that they're secured to the bus as well, red in color, not chip, crack, or broken. My bumper, give it a push, make sure that it's secure, which it is. It's not cracked, it's not falling off. It appears that everything is secure on it. I'm going to open up my hood here, so I'm going to check my compartment here, make sure my doors are closed. As I come into the back, first thing I'm going to do for safety is I'm going to kill the switch. So this is that way nobody jumps up front and goes ahead and starts it. So turn it to the middle position. Then you can turn on the compartment lights. I always start with my right and work my way over. So we're going to open up the shield here now that our motor is turned off. We'll start with our components. So the first thing we have right here, this big guy, is our air conditioner compressor. I know that because number one, it says Thermo King on it, so if you ever forget about it, just remember Thermo air conditioner. Our air conditioner compressor is belt driven. Belt's not chip, cracked, or dry rotted. It's got no more than 3/4 inch of play when I push on it, which is proper. All my mounts are secured. The bolts are secured and taut. I don't see any leaks coming out of my compressor or any of my hoses going up into the air conditioner. As I move over to my left, I'm going to check my alternator. Checking my alternator, once again, it is belt driven, so I'm checking this belt, making sure it's got no more than 3/4 inch of play. There's no dry rot on it. It's not chip, crack, or broken. Checking my alternator for its mounts, making sure the mounts are secure. Any kind of electrical connections that I could see off of this are secure and they're not leaking or anything like that. Behind my alternator, which we can't see, is my gear-driven air compressor. This is the air compressor for your braking and your suspension. The air compressor, you can't see it, but it's gear driven. You're checking for any audible air leaks. You're also looking to make sure that it's secured to the bus. And all down here is our water pump. Our water pump is gear driven, believe it or not. It's actually behind there. That's just an idler, but it is a gear driven water pump. We're checking to make sure that there's no visible water leaks, coolant leaks out of it. All hoses coming into it are secure, and that there's no bolts backing off or anything like that. Holland's getting me. So we're going to close this. This is our oil fill, as it says. We're going to make sure the cap's secure on it. So we move over to our left. I'm going to check my fluid levels. I got my oil dipstick right here, and see it's got a little oil can on it. You just twist it to the left and pull it out, and you want to pull it all the way out and check your fluid level. You want to make sure that there's no burning smell to it, that it's proper fluid level, and that it's not any discoloration, not milky or anything like that, which this one looks pretty good. So we're going to put it back in. This is our transmission oil fill and also check. We'll pull out the transmission dipstick. We're going to make sure that there's no burning smell, no metal shavings, and we got proper fluid level, which we do on here as well. No discoloration to it, so that all looks good too. Put this back in. And you just twist it to the right to secure it. I'm also going to check while I'm here. This is my coolant level. So I want to see coolant in one of the sight glasses. There is 2 sight glasses and they have coolant. I'm also checking my exhaust that comes out of here, making sure that all my clamps are secure, that everything's tight, there's no leaks. If I had any signs of soot back here, that would indicate that I would have an exhaust leak, and everything looks pretty good back here. And that should complete our motor component. So with this, I'm going to go ahead and turn my ignition back on the front and turn off my lights. I'm going to take my door and shut it. We also have, before I and shut it, there is a safety mechanism on here. You have to push the red tab in and then shut the door for it to go down. All right, let's go through the interior. So my interior of my bus, first thing I'm going to do when I get in here is going to go ahead and perform a safe start. So I'm going to take my ignition, click it 2 clicks to the right. When I do that, I'm going to check up here on my dashboard, make sure that all my lights light up and that they're working. And they should all light up. If they don't, which this one isn't, there's also a test button here, so I can go ahead and turn this on. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I'm checking my ABS light is here as well. All my lights and warning signals are working, so I can let go of that. I can do a safe start. I'm going to go ahead and start the bus. And we're going to make sure that the air conditioner is on, or the heater is on, depending on what time of year. That way you don't upset your tester. Ooh, it's 93, all right. So on the interior of the bus, I'm going to start at my very far left. I'm going to check out my aspects over here. I have a fire suppression button back here. I'm making sure the pin's in and it's secure. My safety vision, I'm making sure it just has power. There's no error codes. It doesn't say ERR. That's red light's not lit up. My door release, I'm going to go ahead and flip it to normal. That way I have operation of my door. My speaker switches, my message, and my heated mirror switch, all three are here. They're secure. This is your power mirror switch. I'm going to go ahead and get my mirror set up for my backing exercise, so you want to actually go ahead and make sure that they're working, properly functioning, which they are. I'm using it right now, if you can see that. This is my parking brake. I'm going to check my parking brake. I don't hear any audible air leaks out of it. It is secure, it's pulled up. It's not loose or anything, so it should be working properly. And we'll check that with the parking, with the air brake test. My door controls. So I'm going to go ahead and operate both of my doors. I'm going to make sure that they're both working properly, which they are. And I'm just going to leave them open for the time being. Also over here is my lift and my kneel and my raise. I'm going to kneel the bus, make sure I'm properly functioning there. And then if I had to use my ramp, I would hit the power and hit deploy or stow, making sure that that's working properly, which they appear to be. My ignition switch, we already talked about that in the safe start. It's here and secure. My engine start, we used that earlier. It's secure, it works the bus. Fast idle switch is here. We're going to turn it back on, make sure that it's working properly. 4 ways. I'm going to turn it on. My buzzer works, as well as my indicators. Both are working properly. Engine override, stop engine override. This switch will be used if I had a stop engine light come on and I needed to get over to a safe spot. And if I flip it up, it'll give me about 20 seconds of driving until I got to a safe spot. My chime switch is here. It's working properly. My interior lamps, we're going to go ahead and turn them on. We'll turn them all on. And we'll check the lights in the back here when we do our interior walkthrough. My gear selectors, reverse, neutral, drive, 3, 2, and 1. It's all here. It's lit up properly. It looks like it's working great. We're in neutral right now. Coming in my dashboard, my booster fan, it's working properly. This is the fan up here that controls the air conditioner onto the driver. It comes out of these vents here. Panel lamp switch works properly. My wipers, I'm going to go ahead and push it and make sure that I have fluid coming out of my windshield wipers, which I do. And that they're working properly. It's clearing the water great. Defrost fan is right here. I can twist it to go low, medium, and high, and then I also can twist the controls to go from the glass to the floor or cool to hot. On my gauges, I'm looking at my air pressure gauge. It needs to be anywhere from about 100 to 140, which this one is. That's proper operating pressure for us. My speedometer, I'll test when we're on the road. This is my DEF, my diesel exhaust fluid. I want to make sure that I have at least an eighth of a tank, and I'm at a little bit above 3/4, so that's good right now. Oil pressure, I need to be above 10 psi when normal idle. We're almost 50, so we're good there. Water pressure or water temperature should be between about 180 to 200 at normal operating, so we're right in this general ballpark. And then voltmeter needs to be about 27.5 to 28 volts, which that one is good as well. Checking my engine test, that's for shop. I'm just making sure that's air secure. I'm gonna go into my excuse me, gonna go into my steering wheel now. Making sure my steering wheel doesn't have more than 2 inches of play when I wiggle it there, which it doesn't. Checking my horn. Gonna make sure that all my adjustments are working properly, which they are. Gonna check my pedals, make sure my pedals are secure, both brake and accelerator. Making sure they're secure to the bus. There's nothing behind them or underneath of them. They have good tread so I can get good traction on it. My pedals on my left foot, I'm gonna check those. When I press my right or my left, I'm gonna be checking my left indicator light up on my strip up here. Same with my right one, I'm checking up there on the right. I'm gonna check my high beam, make sure that my high beam comes on, which you can see, it's the blue one right there. And then I'm gonna check my upper right one's my microphone, and I would check that, turn it on, and see if it works properly as well, which it does. Check my seat while I'm here, checking all my functions of it, making sure I go forward, back, up, and down. Making sure that all the air functions are working. And then I'm going to pull out my seat belt and check my seat belt, making sure that it secures into the holder. Also making sure that there's no tears in the seat belt, no cuts, no fraying, which that appears to be working correctly. While I'm here, I'm going to check my mirrors. I got 2 mirrors up front here, making sure they're here and secure to the bus. I also have an air door release over there, which I can see, making sure that that is behind the glass and it is secure. Any other components up here, I would just double check to make sure that they are secure, which everything appears to be. Let's talk about this up here real quick. Up in this box behind my head, up above, is my circuit breaker box. I'm going to make sure if I was to go in there, we're not actually going to have to open it, but we just need to let us know that the circuit breakers are in there. We have circuit breakers, not fuses, and they're all located up in this panel right here. We don't open it due to safety reasons, as it's above people's heads, and it could be a little difficult to get into. Behind the driver's seat, pull my driver's seat forward. I'm going to check for 2 major things back here. First is my fire suppression and my fire extinguisher. There's the fire suppression for the motor over here. We talked about at the very first thing, making sure that pin's in place. And then I'm also making sure that my fire extinguisher here has proper date, which it does. Has proper pressure, the pin's in place, and it's secure. I'm also going to check into my triangle box. And I should have 3 triangles in here, which I do. And they appear to be in good working order, so I can go ahead and close that back up. Maybe. There it is. Alright. Everything else appears to be secure in here and good to go. So as I work my way back, I'm going to go ahead and check all my rods and everything, make sure that all my stanchions here are secure. I'm going to look up ahead. I'm going to check all of my lighting from the vehicle from front to back, which all my interior lighting appears to be working good. All of my stanchions and handrails are good. Get back to my ADA seats. I want to check my ADA seats, make sure my straps appear to be working order, which they are. There's no frays in them. Check my front straps. I just want to make sure that they're here and that they're secure, which they are. I'm going to check my seating. Make sure that my seating comes down and it is secured to the bus on both sides, which it is. Check my pull cords. Make sure that they're working. We should be hearing a stop requested, but it's not, so we'd have to get shop to check that out. That's not going to fail this bus though. I'm also going to check my emergency exit. Just pull the handle, push out on the window to close it, push it up, and bring it back down. I'm going to go back and continue to check my seats. Checking my back door and my mirror back here. Checking my back door, making sure it's secure. On the inside, the treading looks good. There's nothing that causes slip, trip, or fall. I'm going to go ahead and check my emergency door release. It is there and it is secure. Checking my mirror, making sure my mirror is secure. It's clean. I can see everything with it. And I'll come on back. Check my steps, making sure my steps have good tread on it. There's nothing that causes slip, trip, or fall. Checking all my seats back here, my handrails, my access to my motor, down on the floor and also to the air conditioner vents. They're secure. There's nothing that would let customers get into that, and then we cannot see any motor. And finally, I'm going to explain the emergency exit back here on the roof. There's one of these up front as well. Right now, to open this in an emergency situation, I twist the knob to exit and push on the red button. The door will go up. We don't have to demonstrate it, we just have to tell you how to do it now. So we're going to make sure that's latched and secure as we continue on. All right, we'll go back up front. So the next step I'm going to do is going to be my air brake test. First off, I'm going to raise up my vehicle and shut my doors. That way everything's pretty normal. Go ahead and put my seatbelt on since the bus may move. Remember, our wheels are chalked and secured, so we're not going to move anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and turn my bus off completely, and then I'm going to turn the ignition just 2 clicks to the right to on. That way the computers are boosted up. So my air brake test, it's a 3-part air brake test. First part of it is I'm going to push in my parking brake. I'm going to press and hold my foot brake for 1 minute. You need to time that minute out. And then I'm looking for no more than 3 PSI drop on my air gauge when I do this. So I'm going to go ahead and start my air brake test. Push in my parking brake. I'm pressing and holding my foot brake. After the initial drop on my gauge, I want to make sure that there's no more than 3 PSI of a drop. You would actually time this out if you were if you're testing. You'd have to have your watch with you. We're going to say it's been a minute, it hasn't dropped. So my second step is I'm going to be fanning down my brake. I'm going to be looking for my visual low air indicator, which will be up above your head on the dashboard. If the motor was running, we would actually have a audible indicator as well. So I'm going to fan my brake down. We're looking for no less than 55 PSI for this light to come on. So as I'm looking on my top, so right up here, my low air brake indicator light had come on, and I'm at 65, about 70 PSI, so we are actually good on that one. My third step is going to be my pop-out valve, so I'm going to continue fanning the brake, waiting for the air brake to pop out. This should be no less than 40 PSI, so I'm going to go ahead and continue, and this should pop out my air brake. And there it goes, and we are at about 50 PSI, so we are good on that one as well. So with that being done, we have a couple final steps left. Our brakes are already pulled out, our ignition's on. We're going to fire up the bus again. Now we're going to have, there's our audible indicator going on right now. We're going to make sure our fast idle is on. Now while we're waiting for this would be a good time to think of anything that you may want to go back over that you may have forgotten. Right now I think I'm pretty good, so I'm going to open up my front door here. One of the things I'm going to do is do an exterior light check. So I'm going to take my exterior lamp test switch, which is up here by your light, flip it on, and I'm going to walk around and just show you that all my lights are working. The last thing I'm going to do is pull my wheel chalk so we can continue on with the test. So I'm going to flip that on. We'll go outside and take a look at all the lighting, make sure it's working properly. So on this, you don't have to say anything other than walk around and just point out, making sure all your lights are working, which they all appear to be. All of my back lights are working properly. They're all flashing, they're on. Excellent. Turn signals, markers. All my lighting is on. It looks like my headlights are working on. They're both on. All right, so I'm gonna go, all my exterior lights are working. I'm gonna go back and pull my wheel chocks. And once the wheel chocks are pulled, you can't be outside the vehicle. If you want to go back to something, you just say, hey, I'm putting my wheel chocks back on. So I have 2 more steps to do. First one's going to be my tug test, and that's followed by my service brake test. So I'm going to get in my bus, get my seatbelt on, shut my door, go ahead and do a tug test now. Fast idle is off, put it into drive. So my bus is in drive. You see a solid D that is lit up. So my air brake is still pulled. So what I'm doing is giving it a little throttle. You'll hear it rev up. My air brakes are holding. I'm making sure that my air brakes hold the bus back even if I have it in drive, which they do. My final test is what we call the service brake test. I'm going to push in my air brake. I'm going to take the bus to about 4 to 5 miles an hour, just not too far. And then I'm going to hit my service brake. Now when I do that, I'm making sure that my steering wheel, my brakes brake properly. Go ahead and secure your bus. At this point in time, you can look at your examiner and tell them that you're done with your pre-trip inspection. If you don't, they'll just sit there and stare at you until you do. So good luck and thank you very much.